Check 1, 2. All right, my friends, buckle up. This could be a long one. This is official start of season 3 of the podcast. I'm the Art Professor's podcast. This is the Zim video. I'm the Zim. This is the Art Professor's podcast. Hopefully I can talk right today. It is 6 a.m. in the morning. So yeah, there's that factor playing into this. So last night I didn't sleep really at all, and I just couldn't fall asleep. I'm feeling tired. Maybe if I went and laid back down right now, I would fall asleep, but I just got up and made some breakfast, took a shower, and I was like, screw it, I'll just record the podcast. So starting season 3 with a bang, so to speak. We are, I don't know. I watched football last night. Football season starting. So here we are. I need more lights in here. Even though the picture looks all right, just because of exposure of the camera, it is way too dark in here. I'm still need more lights, but you know, money and all that stuff. So we'll keep it going. My daughter just texted me. She's coming home from Japan, so I want to reply to her, which we'll talk more about later in the podcast. That was a big thing, my kids and my relationship with them over the last week. But anyways, season 3. Where were we? So I don't know. We'll see how we go. So we'll see how it goes. So welcome, my friends. So this year we're teaching at Rochester Institute of Technology again. Last year I taught at Rochester Institute of Technology. The year before that I taught at Northwest Missouri State University. The year before that at San Diego State University. And the year before that I was getting my graduate degree at San Diego State University. And then many years before that, I was at the University of Washington. So that's kind of at getting my undergrad. Fiber arts was my undergrad. Interdisciplinary graphic design was my graduate degree. And I've taught a variety of things at this point, which is pretty awesome because that's what I prefer in a way. Well, what I would like to prefer. Well, I don't know. There's two things. I want to teach drawing and I want to teach social practice. That's what I want to teach. So I haven't got to teach the social practice part as a full class yet. Obviously, I kind of teach it in just my ethics and ethos as an artist. But drawing, I'm starting to teach more, which we'll talk more about today. All right. So off the top here, I want to mention one thing. I decided to start I have a couple mailing lists if you're not familiar with, and you want to join them. I'm going to put links to them. I just figured out how to make kind of links to sign-up sheets that are not connected to my website. They just go straight to MailChimp. So I'm using MailChimp. Yesterday, I finally started paying for MailChimp. I've had a free account for a really long time, but I decided to start paying like $15 a month just for a couple more features, because main reason is the YouTube. So this podcast kind of lives between my two worlds in a sense. My art world, making, obviously it's the Art Professor's podcast, but it's focused on the YouTube channel, right? And so there is sort of still, I feel like, I don't know if it's true in reality. Well, I don't know what my audience really is. I don't know who my audience is. I have like a 200 person mailing list that I kind of use as my art mailing list, but it was mostly a collection of people over my life that I just threw into a mailing list, and thankfully most of them didn't unsubscribe. So a lot of them are interested in what I'm doing in that world. And so I just and I built up, and then there were also people that, you know, I did collect some emails through exhibitions I've done over the last couple of years. So maybe I've gotten 30 emails because of that. So it's become this really focused space for the conversation art. The mailing list, in my opinion, is a very specific and interesting and different voice. Maybe some of you that are on it might feel differently, but when I'm writing it, when I'm thinking about it, when I'm doing it, I only put them out like once a month at most. Trying to just update you, kind of give you a broad stroke update and anything significant coming up. But it kind of gives a deep dive in a different kind of way on certain topics and certain things. I'll show there. So if you're interested in signing up for the art mailing list, there'll be a link below. I'll let you know which one it is. I also just started, because of the giveaway that I told you about last month on the channel here, I started a more YouTube specific. It's basically the Zim video mailing list. So it covers the podcast in a way, but also the gaming, everything I'm doing on YouTube. So, and I know there's sort of different audiences, right? I feel like my art centric audience, or the audience that I've trained to be ready for when I do updates on my career as a professor and those kind of things. This one audience has been sort of trained to expect those kind of updates. And if I threw in like gaming content into that audience, it would kind of like not vibe right. So I started a second mailing list for like very YouTube specific stuff, and I sent out my first one yesterday. And so that got me starting the mailing list, signing up for MailChimp in a paid way and things like that. So if you're interested in either one or both of those mailing lists, I hope, I'd love it for the support. I'd love it for you if you're interested in knowing what's coming up. If you're already kind of following my YouTube channel closely, you know everything. But I want to make kind of, especially the YouTube mailing list in a way, I want to do stuff special for that mailing list. So I want to do like little surprise giveaways, surprise just things. Like if you sign up with your actual physical mailing address, I'll eventually hopefully start sending out little like physical things, stickers, and just fun stuff. But but for now, I'd like it to be a space that, first come to like knowing when bigger giveaways will happen, but just things that are happening that are important for the channel that you can be a part of, and then also do like exclusive sort of email list things like giveaway type stuff as well. So if you're interested in either one of those mailing lists, please sign up. I actually already got 2 people signed up on the YouTube one through my live stream that I did yesterday, so that was pretty cool. So we have about 100 people. It's like 200 people on the art mailing list and about 100 people on the other one. I messed up when I did the import. There should have been like 25 more people on it, but I didn't realize what I was doing and what would happen because I was planning on like deleting the entire list out because the fields didn't line up right, or it wasn't right. Like the CVS file, the file that I uploaded to MailChimp for it didn't do what I expected it to do. And then I got this warning, like if you delete an email, you can't enter it again. It's got to be entered by the user. And I was like, oh, so I deleted 25 without realizing that. So 25 people that may or may not have wanted to know more about what's going on don't get the chance to. All right, so I'm just going to go down the list. I have a pretty comprehensive list today of things to talk about. We're changing the format again. So now that we're back into the season of the podcast, like the normal straight up season 3, we'll start with the school stuff, and then we'll roll into I'm realizing there's sort of 4 sections of the podcast nowadays. There's the art professor part of it. There's the art practice part of it. There's a political part of it. I always kind of have something to respond to on the political landscape. And then there's the personal part of it. So art professor, art practice, politics, and personal. The 4 Ps. You can kind of look, I just realized that. So that's in the order we'll look at it, professor, and then I think today I have it. So actually I don't have anything on my art practice this week. So it's going professor and then politics and then personal. And I'm going to I'll do my kind of final YouTube update later in the podcast instead of at the top like I'd been doing through the summer. So welcome to season 3 of the Art Professors podcast. I'm glad you're here. You can find the podcast obviously on YouTube, but on all the podcast catchers, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and those places. So if you want to make a comment, please do it. Side note, I'm getting a haircut tomorrow, so my hair is in a space where I'm not excited about. I don't like the way it looks. Anyways, here we go. First thing, the first thing I wrote that I wanted to kind of mention, and I'm going to go deeper into it later in the podcast when I talk about the personal kind of journey that I'm on. But this week has been very stressful. Very stressful. Mostly, so my son left. So I recorded last podcast right after my son left on Saturday, I think. Oh, and that's another thing. I'm recording this, as you heard at the top, on Saturday. I decided to shift it. I could have recorded this yesterday because I could have done it, but I started the shift now. So Saturdays will be the day that we'll release the podcast. I don't know if it's a good day or not to do this kind of stuff. It's one of the things about YouTube and content creation that I've never dialed in completely is like, when is the perfect time to release content? I don't know. So I'm going to release the podcast on Saturday. I'll make sure I release it midday sometime because I do know not to release it like too early, but whatever. So look out for it if you're really eager to listen right when I drop it. It'll be dropping on Saturdays for the next until December at least, and then we'll see what my schedule is like in the spring and if I want to move it back to Fridays, because my schedule is crowded now because Monday through Friday I'm going to be grinding, and then to do this on Saturdays really fills up the schedule, because this is work. This is not just like, oh, I'm going to do a podcast, no big deal. It's like it takes me a few hours to complete the whole process. I'd say 4 hours, because of recording it for an hour, usually editing it for an hour because I have to edit in real time. I listen back to the whole entire thing, and then publishing it and then editing after I listen back in real time, doing all the cleanup on any small edits I did. So I would just say 4 hours. So that's a good chunk on the weekends to focus on, and then doing other things, live streaming and everything else I have to do. So I don't know. Does that sound like I was complaining? Not trying to make it sound like I'm complaining. Here we go. So it was a really rough week. So last week, I told you last week it was really hard to focus on getting ready for school. So over the weekend, I started getting ready for classes, and I have 4 classes and a 5th one that's a workshop for 5 weeks later in the semester. And the over last weekend, I was stressed out, partly because of just a lot of factors. And I'll just talk about one factor right now and another factor later in the podcast. But the one factor is just prepping for classes, because I was like, there was just a lot to work through, and I just had to kind of sit down and kind of process through all the things I had to do. Like, this is whittled down now. I'll put on the screen. I'll hold this paper, but I'll put on the screen right here what it looks like right now for you. But basically, I just put the 4 classes and then an extra thing that I had. And it was like there was just a lot of bullet points of things that I had to just go through, rewrite the syllabi and fix syllabi, write the calendars for each class. One of the things I do is those of you that have been with me for a few years have seen this stuff already, but I'm still doing calendars. So I print out a calendar, a full calendar for the full time of the duration of the semester. And then I write down, I have another board behind me. I'll just turn the camera real quick so you can see it. I have this board right here, which was the master calendar. So that had all the dates on it of things that were universal to all the classes in a sense. And then I did individual ones. So I would copy those dates onto the individual calendar and just plan out my lessons in a way, like how many weeks a project should take, and it really helps me visualize it that way. It really gets it. One of the things I've learned in my life is getting as much out of my head as possible and putting it down in physical format really helps me with a lot of things, anxiety, depression being one of them, but just overwhelmingness being one of them. So, and that was the problem at the beginning of the weekend. There's just so much still in my head and so much fear about not being prepared enough, and then just my own personal like wiring of wanting to not fail, like feeling like I wasn't gonna accomplish things on time or right or any and things. And so it's just like, when there's so much in there, sometimes it tilts the scale in a way that gets hard to navigate. But luckily I was able to just chip away and just sit down and take one class at a time. And I learned, a long time ago when I was I'm in middle school going through tutoring, and one of the things that they had me do was, like, we used to do sheets of paper 8.5 by 11 filled with math problems, and I would get overwhelmed by all the math problems, and so they would just tell me to take 2 more sheets of paper and cover up all the math problems except for the one that I'm working on. So I'm sort of able to do that mentally now. I just kind of put aside all the other things and go, let me just hyper focus on one thing for right now, and then check that box. And that's why lists really work for me, like the other list that I was telling you about at the beginning. It's like basically just a list, and to physically be able to cross things off the list really helps me function. So that's how I process my planning for classes. Is one of the things I do is just write them on a calendar and then just go through it. And then the other part is, I met with I think it was during last week. No, it was on Friday, so it was part of last podcast I told you about. But just meeting and going over and having a chance to process new information. Like, one of the things that I've learned about myself and how I process is I get what's the word I'm looking for? I get so worked up with fear and anxiety and different things of a new thing. I'm teaching a new class. I'm just like, I don't know. But once I sit with it for a while, once I get a little information, things start to settle. And it's like, so I just got to recognize, I just wish I could stop that freak out that I do, because eventually it settles. Like, there's going to be multiple, like right at this very moment, I feel pretty darn calm, talking to you, like doing that. But there will be moments throughout working up, like, we have basically a week till school starts, and I'm just gonna, like, things will just pique my anxiety in a way that's like, why do I have to have that emotion right now? Why can't I just be calm? Why can't I just be calm? Like, there's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing I can change. There's nothing I can do. I'll prepare as best I can, which we'll talk about more in a minute. But it's like, why does my body just decide to freak out so aggressively over something that I can't do anything about? And it just holds on, it grabs on. And those of you that have known, that have dealt with anxiety in your life, know it starts to well up, and it manifests in different ways for different people. But it wells up and it latches, like there's like these claws that it just grabs onto your spirit, and it doesn't let go for a while. Eventually it lets its claws out, and it kind of wanders off and lurks in the corner until it wants to strike again. But yeah, so, and just been working on ways to meditate through that process. Breathing helps. So the beginning of the week was really stressful for me, like last Saturday and Sunday and Monday probably. Then it started to calm down. As I started to get things off my plate, it started to calm down. And I'm feeling pretty confident because, well, let's just keep going. I have a lot of bullet points this week, so I'll hit ideas that I'm thinking about in a minute. So one of the things that happened was I met with a colleague this week. Just this is kind of a side note, but I met with a colleague at school, and it's interesting when you can put the pieces together of the conversations that might be happening when you're not around. And one of those moments happened for me this week was I met with this colleague because they want me to take over the drawing club, which I'm totally game to do. So we'll see how that manifests. But they also are kind of in charge of, like, they have They're in charge of like more. And the drawing class that I'm doing is something that they talked to me about, and they told me more about this drawing class, which is also settling. So I'm teaching drawing 2 off schedule. So normally, I guess most students take drawing 1 in the fall, this coming fall, and then drawing 2 in the spring. That's like the progression. You just do them back to back, and then you're on your way. For a lot of like students that are going in the fine art and visual art, like School of Art track, I guess, and opposed to others. And then so they told me that the off schedule one, the one that happens is a different kind of beast in a way. And they said that it's older students that are taking an elective that they're just getting out of the way before they graduate, and from different departments. They said a lot of photography students take it and things like that. So there's that. And then there's students that failed it the first time, or on academic probation in some way or something. So there's like another twist there. And then there's transfer students that have come in from a different system and are just on a different schedule. So it's like a hybrid, which is interesting to me because I think it fits me well in a lot of ways. Like it's just interesting for a couple of reasons, because I still haven't taught any drawing class really to a class full of students that are primarily there because they're straight up fine art students. And I'm really looking forward to that opportunity someday, that I'll get to really instill my philosophy when it comes to drawing and how it relates to the fine art practice and those kind of things. But so I'll be playing the role that I've been playing for a long time, which is the kind of catch-all, like hybrid person, and doing that thing. So that's interesting. But that was just a side tangent to the other thought of when I brought up that I'm teaching 4 classes, and this person was like, I know. So this person was either talked to that, so there was a conversation about me without myself present. And what I'd like to think is it was a positive conversation, because I think this person could have been checked at like, hey, we're thinking of having Zim teach this drawing 2 class as an overload. He's going to take 4 classes this semester. We want to help him out. Maybe, I don't know what the conversation would have looked like completely, but it's just interesting. So it's just another little piece of like, okay, there was a conversation had about me outside of my presence, and it's interesting to kind of put those pieces together. Because it's not the last time. I mean, I was told by other professors, and I told you before that they talked about me, but just to hear that kind of, or just it's interesting, again, like going back to how things come back to you in roundabout ways, like, oh, students think you're a hard professor, it's like, or whatever it might be. So going back to the kind of concept of the stress that was happening over the week. Part of it is, I wrote this down, what makes me anxious is when I try to hold the entire semester and predict what will happen in my head, right? And so in that, I have another thing I wrote down that kind of is a direct response to that. I don't know what I might be forgetting. I just have to trust the process. So it's like, through this whole week, it's like, I recognized that the 4 classes, so I'm reminding myself of what happened at Northwest Missouri when I was there. Teaching 4 classes is a lot. And I don't know if it's a lot for everybody. And I know I said, those of you that are really paying attention to this podcast, I did say, it's easy for me, but I'm recognizing as well, again, I'm reminding myself that, okay, 4 classes is a lot, even though I've already taught, like I'm repeating classes and stuff. It's 4 classes, in the way that I teach, in the way that I invest my energy into these spaces. I'm not, and I never want to be a jobber, as I'm defining it. I said this to somebody the other day, like just there for the job and then leaving. I'm there for the community, the environment, the students, the culture. I'm there to instill something bigger. I'm there to do something more. I'm there to go beyond, you know? I'm not there just to show up for the minimum amount of time and do the minimum amount of work so I can just get my paycheck, you know? I'm there to make this my life. And that takes a lot of energy. So doing that for 4 classes is really hard to do. And I'm reminding myself, but thankfully I have, like I said, 2 classes. I have 2 sections of the same class that I taught last semester. And last year. So I'm more familiar with that, which is a good thing. And then 1 section of a class that I taught last year. So I've only have 1 new prep, which is great. And it seems like a prep, you know, it's like going back to that kind of advice that I was given. Teach what you know. I'm just like, that has been my golden ticket. And I'm so thankful for my friend for sharing that with me. But I just go back, okay, drawing, teach what I know. This is what I know, and this is how I'm going to teach it, and it's going to, you know, it's like, great. And I have complete faith in my ability, so it's what makes it even easier to have that much confidence. But there's still elements of, like, unknown, obviously, because I haven't taught it specifically before, so I'm going to have to experience. And thankfully, I'm learned as well that I know myself well enough that I can't get too worked up. And I do get worked up, but eventually I remind myself that there's nothing I can do about it, and I need to be in the space and feel the experience before I can really know anything. So no matter how much there's only so much planning I can do, and then it's just, well, I gotta react to the moment. I have to be in the space. So, and that's part of the struggle is with me, like knowing, so what I realized too is like, you know, there's this perfectionist, maybe you want to define it as. Maybe there's like this unwilling, I don't know how to define it, but it's just like fear of failure, perfectionism, just a lot of those things. Fear of just confusion, fear of ambiguity, just a lot of things. Like I don't deal well with, you know, I don't like being in situations where it's like nobody knows what's going on. And so, or I don't know how to define it. If nobody knows what's going on, then it makes it, okay, we all just don't know what's going on. Don't like to be in a situation where nobody knows what's going on, but they expect you to know what's going on. I think that's how to define it. And since I'm the instructor, they're all going to expect me to know what's going on. So I need to know something and have some sort of plan for the process. So it's just trust. So that's what brings me to this next point I wanted to talk about, which is how am I planning? How am I getting these structures better? I feel mentally more confident about my lessons. I rejiggered my grading system, which will lead into what I'm about to talk about. My grading is 50 part attendance and participation, 50% projects. You know, it's like, and it feels like it's going to be a good balance in how I'm going to do it. I weighted the grades. I got it all ready on my courses, and it's all ready to go. So what I'm going to be doing is every week I'm allotting 4 points a week for attendance. So 2 points a day, 1 point if you're there on 2 points if you're there on time, 1 point if you show up late, and no points if you don't show up. And late meaning like half the class. So the classes are like 3 hours. Not late if you don't show up in the first 5 minutes, but late if you roll in an hour late, then I'll be like, you're late because you missed everything. Because all the good stuff is in the first 30 minutes of class, and then it's just basically work time, and I just do my thing. But yeah, so and we'll just see how it goes, and I think that's good. So how I'm tracking all this, so I'll just put it on the screen on this side right here is the new tracking system, and on this side right there is the old tracking system, where the new one is basically every day is going to be a full attendance sheet. In the corner of it, I put or there's a like basically a line or like a box with each student, and there's two boxes next to their name that says attendance and participation, and then at the very top it says the date, and then if there was a event on that day, like it was a date that you could turn something in. So all the dates that we had something where the students presented something is an opportunity for participation. So if I notice some student talk, if every time some student says something during those classes, I'll check off the participation mark, and then obviously the attendance if they're there. So if they don't show up, so this, it sort of accomplishes a couple things. Like there are those students that don't show up on due dates because they didn't finish. So if they don't show up on a due date because they didn't finish something, then they lose potentially 3 points for that day, because participation is just 1 point, but it's weighted 50% of the grade. So it's not like they lose out a good amount of their potential for their grade. I stress to my students that I don't care when they turn things in. What's more important is that they're there, because they learn a lot from, I'm rephrasing. I used to say they learn more from me than or more from each other than they do from me. But I'm saying, I'm sort of rephrasing that to, they learn at least as much from their peers as they do from me. Something like that. Or, it's like they learn so much from their peers if they're in the space and engage that way, and they should be engaged that way. So I don't care if you're not done. Come, see what your peers did, get inspired, and then you have the benefit of finishing your project with all that inspiration. So, yeah, so I want them there, I want them participating, I want them engaging. So that's how I'm trying to work it out. And then last night, while I wasn't sleeping, I was ruminating on this concept of participation in art school in 2025. It's like, you've heard me say, I'm kind of refining my kind of thought process around why it's such bullshit to teach techniques in art school in 2025 and beyond, because it's like there's so much broader of a kind of space, and there's no, what I was thinking about it last night is like there's no ultimate perfect, example of your knowledge of that technique, because your art is one of those things, like music, like other things, it's never done. You're never complete. You're never the best at it. You can always be better. You can always grow. You can always change. And you can, there is that argument of you need to learn it one way. You need to learn you need to learn the rules to break the rules kind of thing. I get that kind of concept in some ways, but it's not the be-all, end-all with art, because there's so much, which we'll talk about more later in the podcast too, where there's just the spectrum of art is so broad that it just depends on the philosophy of the school in a way. But, I think because I haven't been a part of the conversations, it feels to me like the philosophy of most art schools are behind where they need to be. They're not current. They're not caught up to what a art school should be focusing on. I think I mentioned this last time or recently, but there's this argument of, should an art school be more like trade school, or, in my opinion, it should be more like a philosophy. It should be like a philosophy department. It shouldn't be a trade. It shouldn't be a trade. It shouldn't be that. It should be about the philosophy more than anything, with the, like, as the primary, with this, okay, and now let's funnel that into the technique you're using. Not let's just learn the techniques, and then hopefully you make something that is actually worth being made. I don't know. I guess you could argue. I could see that's the argument. That's the, there are still lots and lots and lots of artists, educators that must be able to shade a sphere, must be able to draw a straight line, must be able to whatever. And I'm just like, no, I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I don't think I think what's more important is that the students are actually thinking about what it is they want to be, why they want to draw a straight line, why they want to shade a sphere. And in that thought process, maybe shading a sphere badly is more important to the art than shading it perfectly, So there you go. That's the conundrum we're in. So that's the grade. So the old style I did was, I did it by student. So each student had a section, but this time I'm doing it by day. Very simple. We'll see how it goes, but I had to go through that first process to get to the second process. So we'll see, and I'll obviously be reporting back to you on that. I've only actually printed out like one sheet. It'll vary, like the sheet that you're looking at on the screen is 17 students. There may be some classes that have 17 students. I think that's the most my enrollment is, or it could be this semester. I mean, it could be more, but once the class has settled, I won't really make this until, I'll make it next weekend. So there might be some adds and drops before the actual classes start. But then I'll make temporary ones sort of for 2 weeks, and then by the middle of the second week, I usually will lock it in and then make it. So maybe some classes may have 14 students. So I'll go into, made it in Illustrator, and I'll go into Illustrator and resize it. So the classes that have smaller amount of students, I'll have more space to write. But the classes that have more students, I'll have less space to write. And this is, so hopefully we'll just deal with it as it comes. All right. One of the things that this semester that I'm going to be, it's kind of a reminder of, in a way, a new experience, just straight up, is working with figure models. I haven't drawn a figure model since I was in undergrad, and I haven't done anything. I haven't never booked one and worked one. So I went through that process just this last week, a couple days ago, and so we're starting that process. I'm going to be bringing in a figure model for my drawing class just to go through the experience of it. Really, it's more, honestly, it's sort of, I could have easily just tried to like not deal with it, but I'm thinking like it seems like the school expects it, so let me do it because the school expects it. It's good for me to learn it. It's good for me to do some homework and remind myself how to teach it, because I'm sure if I want to make drawing my primary thing that I'm teaching, I should probably know about how to teach figure drawing a little bit and what to do. I'm going to use it as an opportunity for gesture and just kind of using our body to draw their body. So there's that. Okay, so one thing that came up, we're going to be rolling into more broader philosophy of art school that I've been thinking about. And one of the things that came up, actually, you've heard me say, I don't know. I've said many times that there's a parallel between athletics and art. I mean, there's just there's so many mindset things that just match. And something that came up this week that matched, that I wanted to share with you, it was Tom Brady talking about the state of quarterbacks in the league. And let's listen to this. We're only going to listen to half of it, but it's basically like the development of a quarterback and what's happening is very similar, in my opinion, to the development of how art school is approaching students. And I'll talk more. Let's listen to it, and I'll talk about it on the other side.
Now you see all these young quarterbacks coming to the National Football League.
Yeah.
What do they not have, and what do you think college coaches should be focusing on in development for college quarterbacks?
I don't think there is much development at this point. There's a lack of development. There's a lack of development at the pro level. In some ways, there's a lack of development. In some ways, they're overdevelopment because they actually are starting at a young age. Maybe there's a physical development that I see that's probably a bit better based on all the instructional videos that are out there on YouTube or Instagram. There are more videos on how to throw a football now than I ever could have imagined.
Private coaches and so on.
Exactly. There's all those. So physically they're developed, but the mental, learning how to study the game, learning the tactics, learning how to watch film, learning how to deal with the emotions of a competitive program, going up against a school rival, failing in front of 70,000 people. I think we're lacking the mental, emotional development. Physically, they may look developed. Mentally, emotionally, they're very underdeveloped. Sometimes their emotional growth is stunted by the fact that everybody is telling them how great they are all the time.
All right, I'm going to end it there because that's about the spot that we need to listen to. But basically, so I'm going to go, sort of roll back that last little section, you know, that telling them they're great in a way, you know, it's like with what the state of, you know, I mean, it's been this way for a long time, but because it's amplified with, you know, the internet, that pretty things, you know, things that are, you know, popular or get likes are potentially giving the wrong impression of what it means to be an artist. You know, it's like if you're chasing that kind of like of your work and that's your primary aspect and you're getting praise for a certain type of work, doesn't mean you're making good work. It just means you're getting approved by this social kind of thing. And so it's like the similarity to me just was so apparent of like throwing a football. You can find how to do it on YouTube and all those places like you can now with art. The techniques are all out there. So it's the mental development. It's the why you want to make artwork that's important. And that's what I think is disconnecting. And the parallel of that with what I feel like is happening in art school, because I don't see, I mean, I guess I hesitate. I'm feeling, my hesitation is maybe, I don't know. They're just not, there's the intellectual conversations about what is going on in art school in 2025 is not happening. And everything that I've been influenced by in the four spaces that I've been in over the last 4 years, 3 spaces, San Diego State, Northwest Missouri, RIT, and then, you know, the rest of the world, is I don't hear the conversation about what should we be teaching. I haven't been in the space of other professors haven't started this conversation going, you know, is our philosophy accurate, or is our philosophy what we should be doing? It always feels like I've been doing this for 20 years and this is the way it is. That's the way it feels like. It doesn't feel like there's this questioning of is what we're doing the way we're doing it the way we should be doing it. I've never heard that conversation come up. And because I have never heard that conversation come up, I assume that it's not coming up when I'm not around. And so, and just what I see is that the practice of that conversation is not even being practiced. Obviously, I'm not in everybody's individual classroom, so I don't know. Maybe out in the hallway they say one thing, but in the classroom they say another, which I'm a culprit of that too, because I don't show my cards completely because I feel like I would get looked at with, like, I had rocks in my head or something. They'd be like, you know, we just want to teach them techniques and get out of here. You know, it's like where I want to teach them how to be artists. I want to teach them how to really think, you know? So anyways, I just thought that was a pretty accurate parallel to what I feel about the art world and what's the sport kind of idea. And this leads me into something I wrote down. So this is something that I've been, you've heard me say possibly over the course of this podcast, if you've been here, you know, I've evolved in my thought process. You know, I was definitely a just make things kind of personality 6 years ago, but now I'm like, well, let's think about things. You know, it's like what you have to say is, and how that kind of marinating in that process is almost more important than the making of it. But I wrote down in class, it's less about actively doing the project and more about intellectualizing the process. At least that's the way I feel like it should be. There should be space for the students to really think about why they're doing it. And I guess it's like, maybe I'm blind, what does that say? Eyebrow blind? Maybe I'm eyebrow blind to the process because I find that to be so important. But, students maybe not ready for that. because they're young, because of whatever reasons. So it's like I have to find the balance of, okay, I can't bore them to death with intellectualizing about a process, but I just don't think it's being emphasized enough either. So yeah, just interesting. And again, the last thing I have on this kind of topic of art is what I kind of brought up earlier. What art lives on a spectrum, and it's one of the most complex spectrums. You know, going back to kind of this whole thing that I've been talking about, even with my own philosophy of why I think what's important is important. Is I want to be a part of a space, and I want to teach a space that, and of artists that understand there's so much, like I want it. I think it's maybe it's sort of natural to kind of get overwhelmed by vastness, that you want to kind of find a way to make it smaller. And I think that's kind of what happens in the art world. It's so vast and so broad, and there's so many branches and so much. It's like so big that people tend to go, well, I can only see this part of it. And in art schools right now, they only are looking at this part of it, at least all the art schools that I've been a part of, when there's so much more to it. And the so much more part is becoming, in my opinion, more important to talk about than the part that they've been used to. And so it's just an interesting thing to realize that it is that broad and that vast, and how it can be expressed, and how making the decisions on how to be in art school and how to teach is something that continually needs to be reprocessed and reevaluated and relooked at. I don't have the names of, there's a book I learned. It's called something like you can't teach. It's either like you can't teach art or you can't grade art. One of the things, something like that. I think it's like you can't teach art. It's impossible to teach art. So I'm gonna read. I learned some more book. There's some people out there writing about some of the stuff that I've been thinking about, because I need to start reading other people's philosophies on this, because I want to write my own philosophy. I actually started writing. I put lines of text on digital paper of like, okay, this is something I want to like make sure. So I'm starting my outline of these concepts of what it means to teach art in 2025, and from my perspective, and what I think we should be focused on. All right, here we go. We're rolling into the life stuff. Okay, I don't have, so art practice wise, I have one little tidbit about my art practice that I want to talk about, and it's basically an opportunity to talk about K-pop Demon Hunters. And so if you haven't seen K-pop Demon Hunters, what are you waiting for? It is awesome. I love it. So check it out. Basically, if you are not made of stone, then you should feel something when you watch that movie. The music is so good. The message is so amazing. The animation is pretty darn good. It's not the best because it's definitely a direct to streaming kind of animation. You know, it's not Into the Spider-Verse, even though it's made by the same studio, but it's the budget. You know, it's obviously got the budget that it had. You can see it in the animation style and what they did with it. But all that being said, it's amazing. It's an amazing movie, and it's really inspired me, especially by how much it's affected society. You know, it's like, and maybe I see it more than you see it because I've decided to see it. You know, it's like when you decide to see cars that are yellow, you all of a sudden see a bunch of cars that are yellow. But you know, I've decided to see it, so I see it. It's like on my social feed. It's all over the place. It's like K-pop. The music's all over. I'm listening to 2 of the songs right now on repeat. They're so good. I love it so much. And one of the things that, you know, like the piece that you see behind me where I use Jinx to talk about trans rights, I want to make a piece, and I think I'll be making a piece that I didn't realize I would be making, you know, because that's what I kind of like planning on not making things, because it leaves space for something to get inspired. And there's three heroines of the K-pop Demon Hunters. There's three girls that are the singers, and I want to do something like I did with Jinx, with the idea of like, we have this amazing, fun, I don't know, heartfelt story that's getting society excited. It talks about diversity. It's based in an ethnicity that's not white, centers whiteness. Maybe it does in some way that I don't understand, but it's definitely showing Korean culture. It's definitely featuring Korean actors and actresses and singers. It's featuring non-white kind of philosophy and ideas. So that's amazing and important. There's just a lot to be like thankful for, but it's also fun and just fun. It's just fun. I'll just put it that way. It's just a fun thing. And people are kind of really getting into it and sharing that. And when you think about it in terms of like scrolling social media, it's like you have all this K-pop Demon Hunter, and then you have what they're calling music festivals around the country, which are protests in Washington, D.C., in L.A. You have that. You have the Holocaust genocide in Gaza and Palestine. You have immigrants being sent to concentration camps and internment camps in America, and you have like, it's just the juxtaposition of this beautiful celebratory moment of K-pop Demon Hunters on the backdrop of our world. And of course this has been going on for a long time, but just because it's in America, we are experiencing it on a level that we haven't experienced it for a long time. It's just interesting. And I want to make a piece that kind of reflects that, use the Demon Hunters, the girls, the K-pop, Huntrix, they go by, and subvert their imagery a little bit, and talk about what's going on in the world in other ways. So yeah, that's my plan for, hopefully I'll do it soon, but I can't honestly right now. I would fry my brains out if I tried to start a piece right now. I need to get school going first, and then I'll think about making work again. One of the things so going back to the very top of the podcast, I said I was stressed out. And one of the things that, and I'm trying not to cry when I talk about this, because I've noticed that, for a lot of reasons, for all the state of the world that I just talked about, the state of myself and my relationship with my kids has been really weighing on my life, my mind lately. The state of, having to go to work, the state of my economic situation. There's just a lot of different pieces that are, weighing and causing tension and causing things that, I'd like to think that I'm dealing with it well, but I've noticed that if something triggers me, I'm ready to pop. It like happened on my last live stream. Like, there's things that happen in the game that I play that I don't like, and it just triggered me when this thing happened, and I realized when it happened, I was like, oh, I didn't really need to react that way, even though I don't like it. Everybody knows I don't like it. Sometimes there's this line. Sometimes I go on these rants that are kind of like, yeah, I'm triggered and I'm ranting, but it's not like I'm angry. But then there are times where I'm triggered and it's like an anger that appears. And that's what happened a little bit last time, and I didn't feel right about it. And I think I just realized how I can phrase this is just like, I just basically feel like, because of the journey that my life has taken with the pandemic, my kids aging into high school, the pandemic causing us not to be able to really be together at the week on, week off schedule. And then at that point in 2020, our lives really started to diverge. I tried to do as best I could to do things for them, but through the course of their life from 2020 to 2025, a lot has happened, and our physical distance has, we're physically distant from each other. And my biggest fear and my biggest one of the biggest weights on me right now is that I've failed my children because of just how life has played out for them. And it's really difficult. It's been really, really weighing on me, and I'm trying to navigate it. And I think I need to honestly think I need to find a therapist and talk to somebody about it, because I recognize there's nothing I can't change the past. I can only move into the future with the intention. I want the best for my children, and if it feels like I wasn't, by my lack of presence, didn't provide them with the best, it really weighs on me. It really is making it hard to cope. And so, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. But it's been really difficult. And that was part of so spending a week with my son, I got to kind of get to know my son, and just some things came up, through that process that made me really reflect on my relationship with my kids and wanting to. So one of the things that came up is that recognition of you can't get it back, time. You can't get time back. You can't get it back. If you make the decision, I thought this is what I recognized. I hoped that the amount that I was engaged with them and showing them, being a good human being and providing for, figuring out my life would be a model to help them figure out their life. And maybe it will, and maybe it does, but there's also that being physically next to them and going and guiding them through a situation is also, is what I wasn't able to do to the degree that I would have liked to. And now I can't do anything about it. I can't go back in time, So I just have to, if anything was broken, if anything needs basically repair because of that, then we got work to do. And hopefully I just hope my students, my kids will be receptive to my desire to work with them and repair whatever might need to be repaired, if anything needs to be repaired. And, and there's the idea that maybe there isn't as much or whatever, but I don't know. So we'll just have to see how it goes. But anyways, the bottom line is it's just weighing on me, massively weighing on me. The decision to move my life to where I've gone meant, and I didn't see it as clearly as I see it now, but meant the sacrifice of being physically present with my kids in a way that I wish I could have back. But I don't know if I made, who knows what would have happened there was no way I would have been able to because in the moment I was incapable of understanding what I'm feeling right now then. I was incapable of it because I had to experience it to know. And unfortunately, the experience meant, oh shit, I sort of wish I would have done it different. So we'll see. But, I don't know. I'll just leave it at that for now. One of the okay, we're almost done with this. It'll be over an hour podcast, I think. But I wanted to, since we spent all summer talking about the YouTube channel, I wanted to do a complete summer recap in a way. Or not a recap, but just look at the numbers. So I'm going to throw up on the screen like I normally do. Subscriber count that we have right now this week it says 9,508. It's been really rough. The last 3 weeks or so has really sucked for the channel as far as subscriber count growth. But what are you gonna do? And then on this side is channel members, which you can just see that nothing really significant to report there. That plateau will drop probably in about 4 days. We're about right at the current moment, we're at 308 channel members. We're gonna lose about 250 of them in 4 or 5 days. So next week, if I talk, well, I don't think I'll be talking about this anymore like this, but maybe I'll just mention it next week. Or if you want me to keep talking about these things, I will happily do it, but maybe you can let me know in the comments. But anyways, so over the course of the summer, when I started this party of this tracking my subscriber counts and stuff, we started the very first episode of season 2.5 was the subscriber count was at 8,772, and now we're at 9,508. So that was we gained 736 subscribers over the 3 months of the summer. So that's all right, that's okay, that's okay. It's not terrible. And we're at 308 channel members, and that's a plus. So we're at 61 when I started, but channel members isn't a very accurate thing because so many of them are gifted. So it's not like 308 actual channel members. It's like that 61 from the beginning was more accurate than the 308 that we have now. But maybe someday we'll get actually 300 and 400 and 1,000. My goal is to get 1,000 channel members. So become a channel member, 99 cents a month. All right, so that's the recap of YouTube. That's what happened through the duration of the summer, when hopefully it'll take maybe a month. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, probably a month. Definitely 2 months. I don't see it taking longer than 2 months to get the last 500 subscribers to get to 10,000. But there's a potential we can get it in a month from now. So what's that? Like 125 subscribers. 125 subscribers a week, which may be difficult, actually. So we'll see how it goes. Fingers crossed. I don't know, something cool happens. So once we hit 10,000 subscribers, I'm going to do a 10,000 subscriber giveaway. So look out for that probably in winter break, honestly, because it may take 2 months or so to get there. And I want to do like a 12-hour live stream and a giveaway during the live stream. And so I want to make sure I don't have to I have space to do it. So we'll look out for that, but I'll let you know when that's happening. Especially if you sign up for the mailing list, for the YouTube mailing list, linked up in the description. Yeah, last couple things, quick life stuff. Couple other life stuff. Apartment follow-up. So I'm gonna transition again real quick to the cell phone camera, so we can talk about some additions we got. Go over to the closet over here, and one of the additions I managed to get is the shelving system came in. So I'm actually kind of excited about it. So this whole area is a little cleaner than it was, not as many things just piled around. And the shelving system, we'll keep working on it there, but that's looking pretty good. It's a little more organized in there, and I can access things. One of my main things was just not having things stacked. I don't even want this stacked, but I want to be able to just access whatever I need without having to pull a box off of it, which I had to do all the time in my old space. I just had to always pull a box off another box. So this is the studio as it looks right now. And the other spot, we'll go into the kitchen area, is this place right here. I got another same shelf right here, and this is my pantry / kitchen extension. And I put my microwave on here and my toaster oven on there, and then it'll be storage for some stocked up on snacks, some water, because I'm trying to, let's go back to the computer and we'll talk about this more. So I'm trying to stock up on supplies because I can't walk, like I've told you. That's the only sort of downside of the apartment really at this point is I can't walk anywhere really to get stuff. There is a gas station a couple miles away, but it's a decision. If I walk to the gas station, it's not just like it was when I went to the 7-Eleven that was across the street. It's like, okay, do I want to walk? There's no sidewalk. It's gonna be, it's like, but I've only done it once so far just to see, and it's a long walk, and that's the closest place I can walk to something. So and it's not even that stock. It's not even as good as like the 7-Eleven, but at least from the one time I went in there. So that's the update on the apartment. One of the things I wanted to say too is I really, thinking back, I'm actually really grateful to be in this space because it's so much more comfortable. Like there's no comparison. I realized, and maybe I mentioned this a little last time, but I realized over this week, and I've talked about it to my YouTube audience at times, but I realized I genuinely wanted to be comfortable in the other space. Like, I was like, I wanted to not need, I wanted to just, I would love to be the type of person that can just be comfortable anywhere in a sense, like it doesn't matter. It's like, I don't need anything fancy. But I'm discovering in a sense there is a threshold. And what's making this space just light years better, even though there's no dishwasher, the AC situation's not the greatest, the refrigerator has a buzz in it. They're just, there are things that it's like, okay, this place isn't like fancy pantsy by any means, but it is like just baseline comfortable. It's got a nice carpet. It's got the walls seem like they're taken care of. Like the baseboards seem like they're it's not like shoddy construction, or if it is shoddy construction, they at least caulked it up well so they covered the shoddy construction. So whatever it is, it's just like baseline. This is much. This is like base. This is just base. Like anything less than this, you're kind of hurting, because this is like the base model of what a living situation should be. And so I'm thankful. Laundry is cheap. It's only $1.75 per one. So $3.50. It's $3.50 to do a load of laundry, where it was $3.50. It was more. It was like $6 for just the wash when I was walking across the street for doing the laundry at the old place. So yeah, so I'm just way more comfortable in the old place. I'm realizing more and more, and so thankfully, going back to the top of the podcast with those, or that wherever I mentioned it in the podcast there, that like all the things that stack on top of each other that just start to make life a burden. Thankfully, it's not the house anymore. Thankfully, it's not the living situation. Hopefully, it's like, I think we're doing okay. All right, friends. Last but not least, I think I got one last thing to say. So you've heard me talk about the manifestations. I have to rewrite my manifestation, update them in a way. They're still current, but I should update them. Because one of the things that I've kind of evolved in my manifestations with what I'm trying to achieve. So like I mentioned before, so we managed to get the apartment. Like, this is better, right? We did it. We manifested it somehow. We got the money. We asked for more money from work. We got that. And they paid it. They're paying us more. We're working more, but we're getting paid more. We got a little bonus that helped us out a little bit. So we manifested that. We manifested this apartment. We manifested the new studio HQ, I'm calling it. I'd like to think, in a way. We did the work. So now it's the car. The car is the next thing. The car is what we need to manifest. And hopefully my adjustment of the manifestation will help it manifest before the end of the school year, because I need it before the end of the school year. So whenever that was, May next year, May 1st or so. Everybody just put your manifestation, like pray for this to happen in some way. The ideal situation. I don't know how it could. There's so many. One ideal way is like the YouTube channel blows up and it makes me enough money. It's like that's where it comes in, because I don't want to make payments. So 2 criteria. So the original manifestation was Kia Carnival. Kia Carnival, $40,000 about. My new manifestation is any new car. Any new, I'm the first owner off the lot from a dealer car. So that can lower the price significantly. 30,000, 25,000, depending on what's going on. Hopefully there's a few cars out there that I just don't want. I'm hoping that they're not the ones, but hey, sort of beggars can't be choosers. But that's the new manifestation, is any new car off the lot. Doesn't have to be a 2000, it'll be 2026 by that. It could be a 2025, it could be a 2024. Any new car off the lot, first, I'm the first owner, no payments. Just, here's the money, give me the car. That's what I want to manifest. Can we do that in 9 months? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Come on, YouTube. Come on, universe. Help a brother out, man. Help your boy out. All right, my friends. Thanks for joining. As always, be loving, kind, and patient. And we'll catch up with you again next time. Peace. Bye.